Let's move quickly and give ourselves a context of what where we are at right now. In terms of geological ages, there is already a consensus that we are in what is now called Age of Humans, or the Anthropocene. All our brain has developed science and technology, especially since the Industrial Revolution, which is what brought us this massive energy consumption, digging up fossil fuels from under the earth and burning it and putting all the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Obviously, standards of living have gone up tremendously for all, not equitably, but nonetheless. But all the convenience of science and technology comes with very heavy impact on the environment. Where did we come from? If we just go back 160,000 years to about 10,000 years ago, so the last ice age started around 120,000 years ago. So beyond about 130,000 years ago, it was a warm period, and the ice age ended 10,000 years ago, reached its maximum around 20,000 years ago, started to melt because of natural causes like the solar radiation changing because of the Earth's orbital changes, and that ended around 12,000 years ago. And the way of living went from predominantly hunter-gatherers to agricultural development starting in 10,000 years ago. By some arguments, the Anthropocene, or the age of the humans, started at that time, but we have an official name already called the Holocene that brings us into the 20th century, but only in the last couple of decades this debate on Anthropocene started, and it's pretty much accepted now that the new age called the Anthropocene is here. Geology usually requires geological evidence in rocks and sediments and so on that can be dated, right? So all the previous ages can be dated by those methods which are used in geology. Anthropocene debate still goes on. Nonetheless, there are also already arguments that the human impact is already visible in the geological records. Okay, so from 1800s to now, we started the so-called Industrial Revolution with the steam engine in the UK, and very quickly it expanded to Europe and eventually reached the whole world. So 1950 is when the so-called Great Acceleration started, where consumption went up, production went up, exploitation of natural resources went up, energy consumption went up, and carbon emissions shot up quite dramatically as well. And that brought longer lifespans, increased fertility rates, and super exponential increases in population. Okay, and 1980 was when digital revolution started, and we are now in the thick of it. And 2000 is where global warming was officially detected and declared as a grave danger. So 11,005 years ago, we had Holocene beginning, especially with the settling of the humans, hunter-gatherers, into communities, family structure, increased fertility because women were not moving around so much, child care was available because of family units, and so on. And there were several periods where the temperatures went up and down by small amounts, order half a degree to 1 degree. But in general, the climate is relatively stable in the last 10,000 years, except now we are accelerating the warming. The warming started, as we said, fully identified by 2000 and accelerating since, let's say, the beginning of the 80s. So 1950 onwards is considered Anthropocene by some. So here is what the great acceleration means. This is from a paper that's listed here. So it can identify socio-economic trends and Earth system trends. So you can see the population went up super exponentially here from about 2 billion or so to now we are over 7 billion, and projections vary, but there are many issues that we will not really get into here. Real GDPs have increased. Foreign direct investment, which means the economies became global. Urban population, so more and more people now live in cities. Urbanization, land use change, primary energy use, fertilizer consumption. Everything kind of kicks off from 1950s or so. Large dams for hydroelectric and water management. Water use itself obviously corresponding to the population increase. Paper production, transportation, telecommunication, international tourism, as aviation became very affordable and far extensive. Obviously that went up. In terms of the Earth system itself, carbon dioxide, exponential increase, nitrous oxide, these are kind of called, these are what are called super pollutants, so they are much more powerful than carbon dioxide. You probably already heard of carbon dioxide as the main greenhouse gas. We will touch on that a little bit, and we'll see why these are much more powerful. Nitrous oxide, methane, stratospheric ozone, surface temperatures, so the ozone hole problem started here as well. Ocean acidification, so if you increase CO2, CO2 dissolves easily into water and produces acidification or decreasing pH value, which causes problems in the ocean, which again we may not get into very deeply. Fisheries, more and more people eating fish. With wealth comes increased meat consumption and fish consumption. Aquaculture is now a big part of fisheries. So shrimp, for example, even developing countries like China and India play a big role in that. All the agriculture and fertilizer consumption comes with coastal nitrogen increases. So the nitrogen cycle on Earth has been massively perturbed and has huge impacts on biodiversity, on global warming, and so on. Tropical forest loss has increased. Domesticated land, agriculture and other land conversions, and terrestrial biosphere degradation. So this is the great acceleration which is now seen in everything around us on the planet. Okay, so we will add some details to what the impacts are and what the impacts are projected to be before we move on to other issues in the next chapters.